This episode of Make Money Mediating is brought to you by my new partner, Smith AI, where live receptionists and powerful AI work together to help you capture more leads, reduce interruptions, and impress your clients from the very first call. Smith AI answers your calls, chats, and texts 24/7, so you never miss an opportunity, even when you're deep in a session or taking a break. Make Money Mediating listeners get $100 off your first month using the code Guthrie, plus 5% off when you bundle receptionists and chat, and 10% off if you do an annual plan. You can learn more at the link in the show notes or go to bit.ly/MMMP-Smith AI to get started. Hello and welcome to the Make Money Mediating podcast. I'm your host, Susan Guthrie, and I'm an attorney, mediator, trainer, keynote speaker, author, podcaster, social media influencer, technology junkie, consultant, and coach. And although I know that sounds like a lot, but what it really means to me is that I've found a way to make a living doing what I love and doing it in a way that lets me help others. So in this podcast, I want to share some tips and insights into helping you create the career that lights you up and pays your bills, whether that's as a mediator, attorney, collaborative professional, or really anything that you are passionate about. So I'll be chatting with some of the most successful and influential experts in all areas associated with building your practice, and I'll share my own thoughts and the lessons I've learned along the way. So come along on the journey with us, and soon you'll have a practice that will let you make money mediating too. Welcome to Make Money Mediating, the podcast where we talk about what it really takes to build a profitable and sustainable dispute resolution or legal practice. Today, we're getting into something that too many professionals overlook, and it honestly just might be the reason your practice isn't growing the way you want it to, and that is your backend systems. Now, I've been talking about them individually, things like your intake, your scheduling, your case tracking, your billing, right? Nobody likes their billing. But I want to pull it all together here in this episode. So to help us break it down, I'm joined by Melissa Brogdon. Melissa is the co-founder and CEO of Fourth Party, and she's a true force in the legal tech world. She became obsessed with helping mediators build better businesses after seeing firsthand how many struggled to launch and grow, especially in the post-COVID era. She's been named one of Georgia's top 40 under 40 business leaders and has partnered with organizations like Google for Startups, Techstars, and SAP. Melissa is also a proud graduate of Spelman College and the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education. So trust me, this is not your average systems conversation. This is about treating your practice like the business it is and building it like a CEO. So let's dive in with a CEO. Here's Melissa. So Melissa, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy CEO life and all the other things that you have going on. But this is such an important episode for my listeners. And I was just telling you, when I work with clients all the time who are either starting a practice or they have an established practice, but it's not just going the way they want it to. They're often very focused on the externals and their actual services. And what I have found most often is when we really look under that hood, we find out that it's, the back end that isn't running seamlessly, that isn't working well for them, that has the issues. So I happen to know, as you know, I'm a big fan of Fourth Party, and Fourth Party takes care of all of those problems and right from the beginning. So I'm delighted to have you here so that we can talk about what Fourth Party is and just how important the back end is to a successful, sustainable practice. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, Susan. Excited to have this conversation and hopeful that, there'll be something valuable for some folks here.
We always talk on the show about the golden nuggets for the listeners. And
Okay.
I already know the golden nugget
Perfect.
roundup at the end when I do that for them is going to be lengthy. Why don't you tell me, because fourth party was created to manage what are these major issues for people, but why is this back end? Let's talk about what the back end is and why it's so important.
In starting any business, you find that people are really excited and enthusiastic for the front end, the shingle, the logo, the website, the branding. Those are the things that are fun. You kind of get through that piece of it, and there is the other side of operations and running a small to mid-sized business that can be really challenging. Particularly for individuals who have a specialty expertise that they're providing as a service-based business. They're usually really, really strong at that. And then all of those other things that just aren't as fun and sexy tend to get neglected a little bit. And I kind of have a firsthand knowledge of that experience when my husband, Brogdon Jr., was making the decision to really dig into his mediation practice. He had been practicing kind of part-time for a couple of years. And I had been supporting his law firm behind the scenes, doing all that administrative work. And so when he had this bright idea of going full-time on mediation, I thought it was a terrible idea. I did not. And the reason was that I knew how much work it was going to require and upskilling for myself to try to make sure all the bells and whistles and special things that he wanted to be a part of his practice would come to fruition. And he ended up being lucky and one of the lucky ones who got to go on to a larger organization and kind of have a lot of that taken care of. But it really exposed that gap that is true for most people who are breaking into a full-time ADR practice, even if they're just putting their, toe in the water. There is no blueprint for building a really strong business structure. And it is make or break for people in terms of their long-term success. When we were thinking about what was going to be required to provide individuals with that full booking to billing experience, that is what fourth party has become.
Yeah. And it handles it all so smoothly and seamlessly. I should say, I want my listeners to know, because they know about my incubator program. Fourth Party has been our tech partner for the entire beta experience. And I'm really excited to say you'll be helping us with our inaugural groups that are going to be launching soon. So my participants in my incubator who are either building a practice or starting a practice have had access to working with fourth party and having fourth party under their hood as they get going, so to speak. Mm-hmm. They all have called, the experience has been, I will say, not only just to have that, as you call it, booking to billing taken care of in a seamless fashion, but really this understanding some of these things that you and I are talking about here, because you're right. It's easy to get lost in the sexy stuff. I've had clients who have spent weeks working on what colors are their website's going to be, years, right? What their logo looks like. But when I ask them what their intake process looks like, or if I ask them what their scheduling process looks like, they do it by email with 50 emails back and forth trying to find a good time or something like that. It's like this horrible, tortured process and then they don't understand why things aren't going well. Having, your systems, these unsexy systems and protocols and standard operating procedures in place, that's really the basis for a successful business. Absolutely. And that's what this is. Mm-hmm. Your practice is a business.
Yep. And helping first mediators make the shift mentally and emotionally to the reality that they are business owners and that they are chiefly responsible for these components of how their business is going to run, is a part of what we do. And we think of ourselves as people-centered tech in that way, that you can't just really plug in a system and hope for the best. It really requires collaboration, conversation about what your goals are and what's most important to you. And while we think we've figured out, most of the ideal workflows, there are just some unique things that are a reality for individuals doing the work every day. And if we don't acknowledge those habits or preferences, it usually leads to less adoption of the technology. And so we really try to get in there on the ground and say, understand what's important to you, what's going to make you actually use this tool, what's going to be a barrier for you to actually implement these systems, and have some real honest conversation about that. It usually helps us expose where there's just anxiety and maybe frustration from past experiences working with tools. And so people create all kinds of workarounds. And so we're really here to say, okay, let's not do
Let's not do 15 steps when you could do it in 2.
Exactly. And hopefully we've got a solution for that. But there are times where we say, look, we don't have a solution for that piece of it. But here's how you can incorporate some tools to make that a little bit more seamless. And so I think people appreciate that honesty and collaboration.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, your onboarding process in our incubator group is infamous or famous. One of our groups that's working with you, Advanced Mediation Solutions, it's a trio that is starting their own small mediation firm. And I swear they're your biggest fans. They found the onboarding process to fourth party to literally be one of the most valuable parts of building their practice, because you have thought through the process so well and have such a thorough onboarding that it made them think about things they'd never even thought had to be a part of this. And the value of that is something that I don't think they can talk enough about.
Yeah, I think so to give some clarity about what onboarding looks like with fourth party, as I kind of mentioned, we start with goals. Where do you see yourself 3 years from now? And the answer to that often reveals sort of what kind of tools you're going to need in place and what those protocols and systems are going to require. So if from 3 years from now you see yourself as still a solo operating independently with a lifestyle that allows you to take weekends or evenings off, then you're going to have to approach creating those protocols and systems in a way that lend to you operating independently in a time-saving manner. If it looks like 3 years from now, you want to be the head or the center or the anchor of a 10-person mediation firm, you're going to need a lot of oversight, a lot of documentation, a handbook for people to operate under, and make sure that the quality of your services are consistent across individuals. And so really that conversation about where you want to see yourself really helps to expose what's important to folks. But regardless of if you see yourself as an individual or scaling up to a larger organization, you have to have processes that are replicable and hopefully automated so that you're not creating a lot of additional burden on yourself and pulling from your capacity to deliver really high quality experiences at the negotiation table.
Yeah, it's those processes that can be replicated or can be, I love that you said automated, because they hear me talking about automation all the time. But it's funny because I talked to a new client today, and as we were talking, he has a long time practice, but one of the things that he's noticing, and I think he's right on top of things, is that the practice is changing because as technology is advancing, as automation is becoming more available, more implemented into what we do so that things are streamlined, he's finding clients are expecting a more streamlined, technology supported, easier to access experience. And yet he doesn't have he's got the 15, steps to make an appointment process because that's what's always worked for him.
Yeah, well, I think COVID really raised everyone's expectations about what's possible in an environment where we cannot interact in person. And so the remnants of that are, legal is not immune to that. As everyone's tech familiarity grew, so did their expectations. And so we talk about, there should be 3 clicks to get to booking with you. It should not be a super complicated process because you just lose people in those sort of convoluted processes. And so I think that when mediators are doing so much work to build up relationships and market themselves and get someone to their site, you don't want to lose them once they get there because, now I've got to click the contact us button and, oh, it actually is just a phone number. And now I've got to call and leave a message and hope you call me back. And I'm not really sure what to expect. And so now I've lost this transparency in the process. And so we see a lot of bookings lost in those kind of redundant experiences. And so being focused on how to get people quicker to a yes is really an important part of growing your bookings and business overall.
I love how you worked in getting to yes to a bunch of mediators and dispute resolution professionals. Bravo.
Yes.
Getting to yes. But 100% correct, right? The whole point of when someone lands on your website, think about how much work we do to get them on that website. And if they can just click a button and get scheduled on your calendar versus having to pick up a phone and, oh my God, make a telephone call.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to make telephone calls anymore.
Yeah, they will eventually if they have to, but it's
eventually. But if the guy next door or the next website has his calendar easily available, I think we know. And so you've mentioned, and I do want to highlight this, you're mentioning some of the things that people might be doing wrong, right? So when they're looking at why things might not work, one of the things that I heard you saying is, doing things manually when they could be automated, or when there could be a set process where they, in place a standard operating sort of procedure that will be replicated over and over. So the thought doesn't have to go into it over and over. Also, the making it hard to book, making it hard to get on the calendar. What about not tracking or not following up in that automated sort of fashion?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm exploring personally as a new mom of 2 is how to manage the mental load. So my friends' moms are always talking about mental load and how that it isn't the things that I have to do. It's storing all of the information and tasks and problem solving constantly that are really the burden. And so we really sort of take some of that mental load off of individuals. So one of the most redundant pieces of scheduling and getting to the negotiation table is communication at intake. Once those parties have said, yes, I want to, have this conversation, who's going to remind them? How many times are we going to do that? Are we going to send out a 3-week reminder? Are we going to send a 2-week? Are we telling them 24 hours? Did the parking instructions come out? The agreement to mediate? Have I checked all these things? And most mediators have a mental list that they run themselves through on a weekly basis and hope that they've checked every box. It's unrealistic. It's too much pressure. And that mental load matters. You can't see it. It's an invisible sort of weight that people are holding. But one of the things that we have built into Fourth Party is really focusing in on notifications and removing those redundancies around communication. So once a session is booked in Fourth Party, there are a number of triggers that are happening at any moment to remind people of the event and to keep them on track, to reduce cancellations ultimately, which is money out of your pocket when you find yourself having gotten to a yes and then it doesn't get to the table.
Backs up to a no.
Yes, right. And so, but again, remembering about that people-centered piece of things, like automation doesn't have to be completely hands-off. So when that communication is generated, it comes right to your inbox. You can always at any moment reply all and say, hey, actually, I just want to make sure that, we have everybody's lunch selection ordered, or actually we had to change locations, or last minute, can you confirm that everyone's going to be virtual? Because you said it last week, but
Yeah.
we're not sure. So we really allow people to have that flexibility in engaging with the tools so that they don't have to feel sort of outside of the process. And I think that makes it a little bit easier for people to manage all of those moving parts.
So I'll take a quick break right here for a word from a sponsor or two, because face it, all podcasts need some support. So I'll be right back. Part of our DNA is connection and rapport with our participants, right? That is just what makes us and what makes mediation, dispute resolution special. And I think when people hear automated communication, they think rote, they think standard canned. So I think it's really important that people understand you can automate right up to the tippy tip, but there's 99% is perfectly fine automated, but you still within this system have that ability to get those personal notes in, to personalize, to keep that personal connection, which is so important for people.
Definitely. One of the things I've observed with the mediators that we work with is that for the most part, they are being selected because they are effective in understanding what's valuable to the people around them and being nimble and responding to that quickly so that they are able to, again, push people towards their ultimately desired outcomes. Somewhere that often gets lost then in the application of actually running their business, and sort of being values driven and like what's important to me. And in any business that you're working with, convenience is key. And we make decisions all the time just based on convenience, even if it's not really the best option. If it's easy to get to, we prioritize that. And it's just a reality of the culture and society we're living in. And so mediation has to be similarly responsive, and it can take people out of their comfort zones. And I think that's a fair discomfort, and we just try to help them get to that next step.
Hey, if anybody has gone through the drive-through lane at McDonald's for dinner instead of pulling into the sit-down restaurant because you just don't have the time, the energy, or whatever it is, then you understand that sometimes we make choices just based on convenience, right? Tell me, as you were all sitting down, building this out, you were taking your experience with your husband to, very high-end practice. What did a great system look like? What were you building in so that I know it's in fourth party today?
Yeah. Well, I will say we always consider ourselves ever learning. And so that means that we are always building the best fourth party, and thinking of fourth party as that fourth participant at the table. The reality of technology today is that it's growing and evolving every second. We're constantly trying to make sure that we have the right tools at the table. And we're realizing that there are some items over time, features over time that are not well utilized. And we take that feedback and remove it from the system. So when I think about what the best workflow is, it really is one that accounts for at least a minimal viable approach to solving each step of a general mediation workflow. So have we at least made a decision about what intake is supposed to look like? Once a person has said yes and we have a date in place, what communication is going to happen pre-mediation? During the actual event, what technical supports do we need that are going to make sure that this moves seamlessly? And then post-mediation, what communication, what reporting, what data do we need to capture so that we can learn from it and make sure that we've closed this process? And then ahead of getting to our next booking, how do we sort of take the value of the experience that we've had and use that to make new decisions. And I think that that's an area that we're really focused on now. How can we incorporate tools like AI to help mediators outside of actually processing a mediation to think through their past experiences and learn from them so that they can be better equipped the next time they do that mediation. And there's a lot of interesting tech out there. And so we're evaluating what's going to be the best tool. There's a lot of influence to just throw a chat bot in there or, can you generate this? And we're trying to be really thoughtful about what's going to be the most useful product. But I think when you're thinking about an ideal tool, it needs to address the most critical points of your workflow. And that requires you figuring out what that ideal workflow is. And that's a conversation we're happy to have.
Well, and that goes back to that onboarding with fourth party that is so helpful. And I think it's a really key factor here that integration of technology that I'm sort of in that world of tech and law and the two, how they merge together more on the user side, but I'm fascinated by the tech. And so I get lucky to sort of hear about what's coming down the pike or be involved in, as they're building things out. But you're right, it's coming so quickly. And especially, I think maybe, a year and a half ago or so, people were jumping on AI just to be able to say AI was incorporated. Mm-hmm. And it didn't really matter to them how it was being used, sure, whether it was well used or anything. Whereas now I think we're far enough into it where as it's being integrated, it's certainly a powerful tool. But it is changing so rapidly. And the people who have waited or who are doing this very thoughtfully are really the ones who are building out the tools that are the most helpful.
Yeah, I think for us, we certainly consider ourselves to be innovative and at the forefront of development, but we would love to be known as the easiest to use product. And that is to us going to distinguish us from other options out there. If there's not high utility for something, we really are slow to add it to the product lineup, and sometimes to the frustration of some more advanced users. But we think that it's the right way to approach, our values and the way that we are building our identity in the market.
It makes me laugh when you say, it has to be high utility, because I don't know if you've noticed, but the legal and legal adjacent fields tend to have a lot of technophobes out there in practice. And so often when I'm working with clients, right, and I bring up the idea of bringing some tech into their world, there's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to, I don't want to learn I had to learn Zoom, Susan. You made me learn Zoom. Don't make me learn more. And I forget other people don't get as excited about, whoa, look what ChatGPT just did as I do. But so by keeping your tech integrations simple and really making them user friendly, I do think that that's been another element of the success of fourth party, because the learning curve, although the onboarding is a learning process, the learning curve of using fourth party is not difficult.
Yes. Yeah. That has been a priority of ours. And, we've dug into a lot of resources to help us think about sort of our product roadmap, how we're going to grow our tool, and listen to the feedback that user adoption is the bread and butter of whether or not you are being a successful company. So even if you've thought of the coolest thing, if no one wants to use it, have you been?
It's not that cool.
Maybe. But if you're looking for like scale and widespread adoption, which is something that we are eagerly seeking, it is going to have to make sure that it fits for the majority, and that again, we have a process for bringing people into using the product that allows them to feel connected to it and engaged with the tools and to find their favorite. So sometimes we talk about, look, you don't have to, there's so many things that fourth party offers. Do not feel like you have to use every one. But if you can find a favorite that makes a difference for you, we think that can add a tremendous amount of value, and we can start there and then help you get more familiar with some of the other tools and engage with the project more wholesomely.
Yeah, it's not a all or nothing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It's really because you help in so many different areas.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I want to make sure we talk about, because this is a touchy area for so many practitioners, because chasing getting paid is no fun for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys do it for them.
Yes. Yeah. There are plenty of fourth party users who are here for the invoicing workflow.
Yeah.
Like
if they only found one thing they liked.
Yeah. They could deal with some of the challenges or mental load related to some of the other pieces of their workflow, but invoicing, they prefer to stay neutral. And so
another good, you're good at getting that ADR stuff in there.
Yeah.
Good job.
And so in service of that neutrality, we go after it so they don't have to. And so there's the ability to customize the closeout process of a case in fourth party. They are able to bill based on whatever the unique situation is that comes as a result of their negotiation process, or if they have set flat rates or details that they set out at the beginning that are sort of non-negotiable, they have the ability to customize their invoicing and send it through our system. There are a number of automated reminders that help push that through. And so we see a really good success rate in terms of collections through our system, in addition to the fact that we're enabling e-payment. And so, when there are still folks who love to write a check, and I get it. and we never say you don't, you have to get rid of that process. You will have to manage it.
Yeah. You can deposit that check.
You can absolutely still accept paper checks. But we are just seeing movement even beyond ACH and e-payment to some of the P2P processing, people who want to do Cash App and have those kinds of tools available, particularly for pro se litigants. And so there's a variety, again, of expectations around e-payment, and having as many options as possible certainly reminds people of the value and the opportunity to work with you when they've gotten done with receiving your services, and you want them to feel good when they're paying. That's painful for everyone, right? So please don't make it more painful to where I am considering then potentially not selecting you for services in the future because you made it so hard after you actually did a great job. And so we think that there's a lot of opportunity there, and that's a place where a lot of people see value in fourth party.
Well, nobody likes chasing fees. I mean, that has been the bane of my existence from even back when I was in a large firm. There was still that, hey, Susan, some of your invoices are outstanding. You have a talk with some of your clients, or they haven't replenished their retainers or whatever it was. But then when I went out and opened my own firm, and I was like going after not only my fees, but my staff's fees. And then bane of my existence. So what I, especially like about how fourth party has set this up is you have so many options for how people can pay and how it can be set up. So you're really allowing the practitioner to meet their clients where the clients are, right? You can customize the payment options so that it suits them. And I always remind my clients that people I'm working with as a coach or their consultant, we do need to remember that we are professionals. Yes, absolutely. But we are service provider professionals. And so the client experience, I really think your insight that, it's one thing that you provided great mediation services or whatever it was. But if their last experience of you is chasing after them in an unpleasant bill payment process, your chances of a referral or a repeat engagement just went down. It doesn't really matter how good you were.
Yeah. Well, and then you have to accommodate and compensate for that difficult process in your delivery of your services, which is unnecessary pressure. You should just be able to do just your good job, and make that experience great, so that they come back and there's no sort of challenges with making the selection of you as their preferred service provider. A lot of what happens in negotiations is out of our hands. You are excellent. So you are excellent at what you do, and highly influential, right? But people bring so many things to a dispute resolution. And so while you cannot control what that outcome is going to be, there is so much you can control. Putting your energy towards that, doing it right the first time, you can kind of take your hands off of it a little bit and let that process move around you and support the excellent work that you provide as a dispute resolution professional.
Yeah. Well, and let me just add, when this is all taken care of for you and your process is sort of a smooth running machine, that motor under the hood is running well, you get more time to go actually be that mediator with the skills who can, and you can be the rainmaker drumming up more business, and you can be out creating the relationships with colleagues who might refer to you. You have more time to do that rather than, frankly, the stuff that I'd rather poke my eyeballs out than, if I ever have to do the back and forth scheduling email blitz ever again. When I discovered Calendly back a few years ago, I think it became my best friend like in 5 minutes. So I besides making an appointment with fourth party, which we'll talk about how to do that, to talk about it. If somebody who's listening today wanted to tomorrow do one thing that could help them improve their back end, what might you suggest they do?
I would suggest that they walk through their process themselves. And if that includes calling, if you have a receptionist, call the phone number and see what that experience is like. Go to your website or ask a friend to go through, particularly a person who is not familiar with this process. We ask that all the time when we're working on new feature sets. People who have no idea what to expect, can you get through this process and get their feedback? I think if you just walk through your intake and creating as much of a blind experience for yourself as possible so that you can get some really valuable feedback. Wherever you experience friction, don't ignore it. Ask some more questions, challenge that. Don't assume that it'll be fine, because those are moments that are probably a friction point for your customer. And an easy, we're always looking for these quick wins. We often can have a quick conversation with an individual and help them figure out some small things that they can do to improve the flows of their processes. So I would encourage you to do that audit. And then what you find, reach out to us and we'd love to discuss it.
Yeah, there's, a wealth of knowledge, obviously, on the other end. If people, I'm obviously going to have, as I always do, everyone, have all of fourth party's contact information in the show notes. We'll have a link, but I want to say here, it's fourth party, all one word. Mm-hmm. It's FOURTH, fourthparty.app, APP. Okay, so you'll be able to find, no, I've got it memorized. It's fourthparty.app. I tell people all the time. When people reach out, can they make an appointment on the website? Hey, let's put you guys to the test. Do they have to make a phone call?
Yeah, so they can make an appointment via the website. It's pretty straightforward. We're accepting conversations almost daily, so you usually can get to us pretty quickly. And so once you schedule that appointment, there is an opportunity for you to share a little bit about what you want to what you're concerned if you do have that opportunity to do that audit. We'd love for you to bring those questions so we can make it as valuable an experience as possible. But certainly come to us without having done that, and we'll dig in there and pull back the hood and figure out what's challenging. So no worries, we'll figure it out. Yes, please schedule a consultation conversation with us. We usually share a product demo and talk through some of your goals and priorities. There is the opportunity to certainly sign up for software services, but we also provide consultative support. And so it's really us designing the best way to move forward. And we're looking forward to having those conversations.
I highly recommend you reach out to them. I will also say that Melissa's colleague at Fourth Party, Michael Holmes, will be coming on the show in a few weeks, and he's going to be talking more about the client experience, more of that outward facing client experience, which is so important yet so often forgotten. So stay tuned for that episode as well. But Melissa, thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for coming on the show. I do want to thank you personally here for being such a supporter of the ABA section of dispute resolution and our incubator program, but also just what you're doing, because you know how important it is to me that practitioners have the ability to create successful and sustainable practices. It's how we make dispute resolution the norm. People have to make a living doing this, and it has to be something they can continue to do. So you guys are really moving the bar on that, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Ultimately, we are invested in improving access to justice. We believe that dispute resolution is at the precipice of being adopted as the preferred tool for getting people out of conflict. And so we're excited to be championing that. And thank you for your work to continue to improve access to this career for people who are incredibly passionate and just need the support to be successful.
Thank you so much. Great episode. And before we go, let's hit those golden nuggets from today's conversation with Melissa Brogdon. First golden nugget: your back end is your business. If your systems are scattered, your practice will be too. What's happening behind the scenes, intake, scheduling, follow-up, billing, those are all what determines your ability to grow and scale. Number 2, automation isn't just efficient, it's client-centered. Melissa reminded us that a smooth client experience starts with a clear, repeatable process. Automating your workflow actually helps you show up better for your clients. Third golden nugget: stop trying to piece it all together. Trying to duct tape 5 tools together drains your energy and your time. Platforms like Fourth Party are built specifically for dispute resolution pros. Don't settle for systems that weren't made for you. And finally, build it like a CEO, because you are the CEO of your business. Whether you're just starting out or ready to scale, treat your practice like a business from day one. Think long-term, make intentional tech choices, and set yourself up to succeed. That's it for today. A big thank you again to Melissa Brogdon for sharing her expertise. If you're ready to get serious about your back end, check out Fourth Party at fourthparty.app. And if you loved this episode, don't forget to follow, rate, and share Make Money Mediating with your fellow practitioners. Until next time, listeners, build smart and keep making money mediating. Thanks for listening in on this episode of the Make Money Mediating podcast. I hope you got some great insights and tips on creating your dream practice. Join us every week on Thursdays for a new episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything. And if you're enjoying the podcast, here's a shameless ask. Please consider giving it a 5-star rating and tell us in a review what you find most helpful. It's honestly the best way for others to find the show so that they can make money mediating too. I'll see you next week.